Talk to us about what you're hearing from advertisers at this very moment as your campaign is picking up steam.
Sure. So Stop Hate for Profit is a long-term advocacy campaign organized by ADL, the NAACP, Color of Change, and a bunch of other civil rights groups, as you said, specifically to tackle the problem of hate online. And we focused on Facebook because they are the largest social network in the world and the biggest advertising platform on the planet. And what's so interesting is, as we made this call to do a better job of fighting racism and pushing back against hate, our phones have been ringing off the hook with advertisers. So you mentioned Verizon and Unilever, Ben & Jerry's, Patagonia. There's also North Face. Honda joined this afternoon. Birchbox joined this afternoon. And I can tell you more are coming. Advertisers who have seen their own ads published against hateful, horrible content on Facebook, racist, anti-Semitic poison, they are finally saying, enough.
What is it that you think Facebook is doing wrong? What are the real, there are a number of issues. What are the main issues in your mind?
Well, for years, we and others have called on Facebook to change, and they haven't. They've really prioritized profits and reach over people and the safety of their users. So there are several very specific, clear things we want them to do. First, we want them to be accountable. They should be providing audits and refunds to advertisers whose ads are shown next to content that was removed because it violated the terms of service. They should submit to regular third-party independent audits of how they're dealing with hate on the platform. Self-reporting isn't very useful when the author has a vested interest in what they're sharing. We want them to focus on the safety of their users, right? Remove public and private groups, focus on white supremacy and anti-Semitism and racism and violent conspiracies. And when people are harassed on Facebook, there should be a mechanism to give them the support that they need, like every other business does. So this is indeed about accountability, it's about transparency, it's about safety, and ultimately it's about leadership. We want Facebook to establish, again, at a leadership level, a civil rights infrastructure that would evaluate their products and policies for discrimination, bias, and hate. It isn't too much to ask for a company that earned $70 billion in revenue to invest a little more in making sure that all people, regardless of how they pray or what they look like or who they're from, everyone should be fairly protected when they use the platform.
Now, speaking of leadership, Mark Zuckerberg did hold a town hall earlier today talking about how they are responding. They're adding some new features. They're going to be directing users to their voter information center on any posts, including those of politicians, a.k.a. those of President Trump, that talk about voting. Facebook also saying they're going to prohibit ads that paint anyone of a certain race, gender, or sexual orientation as dangerous. And Zuckerberg sounded fairly upbeat in talking about what he believes is their ability to address this controversy. Take a listen to part of what he had to say.
I am optimistic that we're going to be able to make progress on these challenges. We're going to be able to make progress on public health. I think we're going to be able to make progress on racial justice. And I think we're going to be able to do that while maintaining our democratic traditions around free expression and voting. And I'm committed to making sure that Facebook is a force for good on this journey.
What's your reaction, Jonathan, to that and some of the changes that Facebook is making?
Well, look, faced with this tidal wave, Zuck responded today with a small number of changes. And first, to say that they would apply their hate policy to ads, as if that was some new revelation, while not addressing hate more broadly, hate in groups, hate in posts. I just don't get it. It seems like Mark really doesn't understand the problem. The problem isn't that Verizon and Salesforce and P&G are pushing hateful ads. The problem is that their ads are subsidizing hateful content. And voter misinformation, look, that may be a bit harder to spread the day of the election. That's good. But does that mean that voter misinformation will run rampant the rest of the time? And the idea that posts that call for violence will still be allowed if they come from someone, quote, newsworthy? but none of that will be vetted or verified. Look, I don't think it makes a dent in the problem, Emily, and it tells me that we still have a long way to go. But make no mistake, what you heard from Mark Pritchard from P&G the other day, what you've now heard from Viber, Eileen Fisher, Mozilla, Dashlane, so many, again, Honda, Unilever, Verizon, so many of these companies are saying, we don't want to advertise on a platform that undermines our values. And that, I think, is the real story here until Facebook will take meaningful steps and make real changes that reflect the shared values, not just of those brands, but I think of the general public in our society. I don't think we're going to be in the right place.
Now, you've built quite a coalition around this, Jonathan. You've got the NAACP, Color of Change on board, along with various groups representing underrepresented minorities. Why does this issue matter to so many different kinds of people, not just African Americans, not just immigrants?
Well, look, I mean, this is an issue that affects all of us. I mean, we're living in a time now where hate crimes have been indisputably on the rise. You don't just have to believe me at the ADL. You can see the FBI's data. We're living in a time right now when attacks on people who are, Latino, attacks on people who are Jewish, attacks on people who are Muslim, these things are all up. Last year, the ADL tracked more anti-Semitic incidents than we've seen in our 40-year history of doing that work. So the reason why so many groups are concerned is because immigrants are indeed under siege, because our president can't seem to refer to the COVID-19 as anything other than the China virus or the Chinese flu or even more offensive things when Asian Americans are being harassed in the streets by people. And again, the issues with George Floyd really laid bare, watching him die on the street, laid bare, and we've had this public reckoning on issues of systemic racism, which have always been there. And yet, over the past few weeks, Emily, at ADL, because we have a center in Silicon Valley, we are working with the companies, we are monitoring these issues, and we saw white nationalists literally organizing on Facebook to disrupt those protests. We saw extremists coordinating their efforts to spread conspiracy theories and to ultimately show up and, again, try to undermine and disrupt these peaceful gatherings. I'm sorry. I don't think any traditional media would allow that. I don't think any normal company would allow that. And it's long overdue for Facebook to say we will not allow that.